Hey, my name is Lo, and I'm ready to go. I got my girl Wynn too, and we're waiting for you two friends sharing God's words in our lives. The ups, the downs, the strides, the thrives. Be sure to listen in, and you'll soon see that we're quirky and we're awkward, and we love coffee. So grab a mug, some snacks, and some tissues as we dig in and explore our issues on Watch the Podcast. Watch the podcast. Watch the podcast. Watch the podcast.
All right. Thank you for tuning in to episode 2 of Watch the Podcast. I'm Wynn.
And I'm Lorin.
And we're here today. Wow. We're here today to talk about Watch Us Fail. Oh my gosh.
Wow, you're struggling. Been drinking already, huh?
That's the girl that's been drinking champagne all day. Lauren, would you like to share what you got when you went to the store yesterday? You know, your basic supplies for this coronavirus. Go ahead and share with everyone. What did you get on your list?
Bread and champagne.
No, Lauren calls me yesterday, and she was in the car on the way to the store. So then she calls me again when she's done, or maybe you texted me. I don't know what you did, but I say, "Did you get TP?" And she's like, "What is TP?" I say, "Toilet paper." What did you get when you went out? Whatever,
right
TP.
Why people say
what
TP?
Okay, then what do black people call toilet paper?
Toilet paper. What?
All right.
Duh.
So she went to the store to get toilet paper, possibly. And what did you say?
Tissues with an S.
Okay. Did you get that?
Tissue. I got no. They ain't got none of that.
Did you get food?
I got a little food.
But what did you get the most of?
Champagne.
Clearly, Lauren has 0 kids, everyone. 0.
I mean, you
because
could go for some champagne.
The necessities.
Jude likes. No,
Jude's not he has nothing to do with alcohol.
Yeah.
Nora, however,
Right.
likes to share. She likes to dip her finger in wine
There
and
you
suck
have
on
it.
So, there you go.
See?
There you go.
That child's after my own heart right there.
She loves a good finger wine.
What?
A little finger dip of wine.
Wow.
All right, this has nothing to do with today's podcast. Today, again, we're talking about our womp, womp, womp failures. I must speak for both of us here for a second, Lauren, so jump in when you feel like this is not true. Or that it is true. You can say preach, preach, preach. All right, so Lauren and I have failed a lot.
Speak for yourself, sis. What? Speak for yourself.
A lot.
I'm kidding. We've definitely seen a lot of downs, but we also have seen some ups. But a lot of downs.
A lot of downs. Sure. I like to say, when I talk to people, because it's like, oh my gosh, you're so wise. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for whatever you're sharing with me right now. And I'm like 30 years old, okay? 30. We're going to be 31 in July. And that's fine. It's just that we've just done some really crazy shenanigans in these 30 years. Some of it has been self-inflicted. Some of it has been from other people. It's just some of the cards that we've been given. But I like to put a positive spin on everything. And I just think it's made me a stronger, better person, whether it's been good, whether it's been bad. It's just kind of shaped me into who I am. And it's also, as we start to level up in our life, that it's made us be able to do that. Would you agree, Lauren?
Yeah, and I definitely think that's kind of the whole reason we feel, have a stake in the game and kind of sharing with you guys, because if it weren't for the failures and experiences that we have, Wynn and I wouldn't be friends, and we wouldn't be out here telling our whole soul story to the internet, to the world. So as much as it is about to be a stressful little 30 minutes, hour, whatever, I think it's important to show folks that you can bounce back from failure, and that failure is definitely the groundwork to success by all means. And it kind of plays off of that whole, well, if I didn't have the chance to fail when I failed, would I have the chance to be successful now, you know?
I'd also say too, it's a humbling experience. And again, jump in, Lauren, but it's definitely brought me closer to God in those moments of being at my lowest of low to absolutely 100% need Jesus in my life. Where before I just was in my own ways. I haven't always known God. My walk's a little bit different than Lauren's, but I really had my encounter with Jesus in my early 20s. And that was my absolute lowest point in my life. And I would say probably, Lauren, our 20s was the lowest point, and that's really what we're going to talk about today. It was really those 20s.
No, we're claiming that.
Yeah.
The 20s was the lowest. We're not going back, girl.
We're not going back. We've learned a lot. This is kind of, it's the ugly, it's the failures, it's the things that nobody wants to talk about a lot of times, but it's the first thing that we want to talk about with you guys because it's who we are. It's what's made us. And not that we would say we would do it again, but we honor for what it is. And we're just so thankful that we're not there anymore. Agreed?
All right. So let's dig in. What do you want to talk about
Can
first?
This be a drinking game? Is it like share your first failure, drink? I don't know.
Okay. All right. You all know that I'm sipping on champagne. So, Wynn, what are you drinking? What are you drinking right now?
I am drinking what I call a Wynn margarita. If you are Sarah or Hannah or Lauren, I don't know, Lauren, have you ever had a Wynn margarita?
Yeah, I have. And we've gone to sleep. So
let's just say
I don't know how long you're gonna be with us.
I get it honest from my Nana. My Nana just makes some really strong margaritas, and it just makes me happy. A Wynn margarita. So there you go. Maybe one day you guys will get to try one. Let's just say it's more alcohol than it is mix. That's basically the ingredients. I don't really measure. I just dump, and then it Wynn margarita, and it tastes phenomenal. So Lauren told me she was having champagne. I had to jump in, and so here we are now.
Did you
playing
just
a drinking
blame
game.
this on me?
I did.
All right, well,
here we go.
We're drinking.
Who's going first? Painful failure number 1.
Well, since we're talking about love, you should go first.
Love, man. All right. My probably first biggest, like the playing field of all failures, lowest low, was the chance I took on my first love. And we were not consulting the Holy Spirit. We were
Nope, we were not.
There was no consulting. We were just in our own ways. And I'll tell you this too, when I talk about my first love and that experience, I say today, it's like I'm talking about another person because I am just not in that state of mind. It sounds crazy. When I share it with people, they're like, I don't even see that side of you. But all right, guys, here we go. My worst failure, biggest failure was I married my high school sweetheart, which sounds like, oh, high school sweetheart, amazing. I just fell in love with the wrong guy. And not just love, it was probably more of an infatuation because he was the first person that really noticed me, paid attention to me. I'm a middle child. I'm a redheaded stepchild. I just was desperate for love. And the first person who showed me it, if you want to even call it love, was my high school sweetheart. His name is Josh. He may be listening right now because he's a little crazy. And that's okay. And I'm not going to get too much. I'm not going to personally talk about him because I don't know if I physically can.
Yes, let's not ruin your court stuff.
Let's not. All right. So
not do that.
First, my first love. Let's talk about the things that I did wrong. So a lot of it was that the chances I took were the things that I allowed him to do. So when I married my first love, we had 2 children together. I got pregnant when I was 19. I married him 2 years later, and just we were not meant to be together. If I had to go back from the very beginning, we just were not. Very different paths. And when I say like he was controlling, I also have to share with you, I allowed him to control me. So the things that he put in my life, I allowed it. And that's like, that's the chance I shouldn't have took. That's the chance that's the failure part in all of this. I take full responsibility in allowing the things that happen. And so over the years, with controlling behaviors, with just emotionally abusive behaviors, I really just like the physical way that I see it is that it was like I was a bright light and I just started to dim through the years. We were together for almost 9 years. I think we were married for 5 of those years. And it just got really ugly. And ugly in the sense that the chance wasn't that I just finally woke up one day. I'm like, you know what? We need to get a divorce because this is so unhealthy. I got left for like the billionth time. And this time he just didn't come back. And it was eye opening to be in that space. I had 2 children at the time. I was always full time parent. I worked. And then just one day he left. And I just played that over in my mind over and over. And I said, like, what kind of person am I for someone to leave me with 2 children? That's the failure part. The mindset that I had on that first love. It just really, really tore me down. And we're going to talk about this in another episode of really what brought me back up. But I'll just speak to this for a second. It really was those relationships, like with Lauren, with Hannah, really staying close to some of my like close girlfriends to remind me of like who I am and what I was capable of, and really not to put my emphasis and what someone else thought of me, and that was my first love. So it was more of I was scared in that moment. I wanted to be loved. I felt vulnerable, and I just really wanted to conform in a way that someone wanted me to be. And I just lost myself through the years. And so I, it's a chance. It's a chance I took. And, I ended up eating my own words on my own things that I thought I wouldn't do. And I'm now divorced. But again, another episode we'll talk about. I'm now remarried and I have like the greatest husband in the whole wide world, which is so ridiculous. But the failure in this is that I put so much in my first love and making it work because I just wanted to feel love, that it just, again, I didn't consult the Holy Spirit, didn't really know Jesus at that time. And I just dim myself in that moment for 9 years and really had to break out of like a cocoon that I built around myself. Even though someone's self-inflicted harm, emotional abuse on me, just different things that happened. But again, it's things that I allowed. And I will tell you, I will absolutely never, ever take a chance on that again. All right, Lauren, I'm taking a sip of margarita.
Yeah, girl.
It is your turn, girlfriend.
Go
Go
ahead and
ahead.
drink that down. So a little similar story for me, whereas Wynn didn't know or Wynn didn't allow God to lead her, I kind of felt the opposite. And looking back, I know that that's not necessarily true, but at that time, I had been dating this on again, off again boyfriend from church that I had known my entire life. And, we happened to end up in the same city, and he was visiting all the time. And I was at the time this holy roller Christian who was like, oh my gosh, you're not spending the night at my house. And oh my gosh, we're not going to do anything. And so I thought that because I was having these thoughts that it meant that I needed to get married because that's the right thing to do, right? But I had never been taught what things were really needed in a relationship. And mind you, I've been a little grown up my entire life. I grew up kind of like an only child for most of my life. I hung out with my mom and my mom's friends. So I always had this wisdom beyond my quote unquote age. So at 20, when I got married, I thought that I was doing the right thing because that's what I grew up believing, right? But my adolescence was rooted in church, and my church taught me that as a woman, you wait, you get married, and you're supposed to have this man that's supposed to want to be with you all the time, and that's what you do. And going off of that knowledge and that knowledge alone, right, I entered into this relationship with my high school sweetheart, and we didn't tell anybody, got married, eloped in South Georgia. And right before he went off to the war, so he got stationed in Iraq. And a month after we were married, I was putting him on a bus to go to God knows where. And that's when I told my parents, right? I went home for Christmas by myself with this rock on my finger and a dog in a car. And everybody's looking at me like, dude, what is going on? But the short of the story, he was seeing someone while he was deployed, came back, and a whole bunch of issues happened, and we ended up in this situation where he was unfaithful and things happened. I tried to work it out because that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to stay, and regardless of whatever's going on, you're supposed to stay. And so even in the infidelity, I tried to stay. I was working a lot and going to school a lot, and it just wasn't enough for him. So I was like, getting thrown around the house or locked in bathrooms or whatever else. But I thought that that was love because I said, oh, I made this commitment and I'm honoring it by staying, when in reality, it wasn't what I was supposed to be doing in the first place. And so I think that I took the chance on this mindset of religion that I had bought into. And don't get it twisted, I'm very much an advocate for Jesus, and I will pop out, throw a scripture when you ask me to or when you don't. But in that particular time, I had bought into a religion and not a relationship, and that failed me. And so we ended up splitting. 2 years into our marriage, we separated, and he ran off with his friend's wife and their kids. And, I finished school and focused on that. And it probably took about 7 years, so an additional 5 before we officially got divorced, but 7 years total in that relationship. And, I just am so thankful now that I went through it, because I have so many friends that I'm able to give good counsel to about what they should be expecting in their relationship. And it's nice because as much as I lived for so long not wanting to go back to church and running away from the church and thinking that I would never be accepted because I am now divorced, and like that God doesn't love me, and oh, the shame. And in reality, I think it's a beautiful thing to see how in that failure, so much good has come from it for other people outside of that relationship. And so it wasn't easy, of course. There were periods of time. There's one where I locked myself in my apartment, and my homegirl had to come over and like bust the window and come inside and get me off the floor, literally, and just all kinds of craziness. Just really dark, really depressed place. But that was a part of the journey. And, Wynn was there, and we would attempt to do stuff together, just cry with each other. You get to see the raw parts of people sometimes in your failures. And I think that that creates a great foundation for the ability to grow, because that person knows, okay, well, I know what that person has been through. So I can either be rough here, I can push when I need to push, or I can say, all right, you know what, we're just going to have sit back and drink margaritas tonight because we both just need to laugh and cry. So yeah, that's kind of like my love failure. And I'm happily single right now, by God's design for sure, and just focused on doing his work right now. And if so happens that I'm supposed to connect with someone, and we'll make that happen. And if not, I'll continue to love on my God babies and go from there.
And Lorin sure does have some God babies, because she has all 3 of mine, and I think you have some more.
Yeah. Like 3 more. Everybody that gets married, it's like, ooh, we want you to be our kids' godmoms. I'm like, 6 total. Yeah, like 6 right now.
I also like to remind Lorin, and I'm just stating this for the record, if I ever die, Alan and I, here we go. If I ever die and Lorin and Alan dies, Lorin will be taking care of my kids. That's how much she just means to me and my kids.
I don't even think that Alan, I think if you die, Alan will be like, come get your kids.
Well, there is a list, and we recently, maybe this will be a podcast one day, but I just started working for a family law practice, and the importance of having a plan for when you die, especially if you have kids. Again, I'd love to talk about this on another podcast, but I like to get sentimental and remind Lorin that if I ever die, she gets my children, and she reminds me, why are we even talking about this? So moving on to failure number 2. What a perfect segue.
Is it a perfect?
All right, my chance number 2. Did you take a sip of your champagne there, friend?
Yeah, girl, took a big gulp over
during
here,
your
sis.
story. Yeah, during your story, I don't know if you saw me. At first I had a straw, and then I'm like, this is just not working out. So I just started like chugging. So I'm feeling the Wynn margarita here. So I'm going to try not to slur.
I told you to slow down.
In the moment of, I was getting a little emotional there, just thinking about, our timelines are very similar. Both of our relationships really started to fall, even though, like, I know we just kind of sped up the process there, but this went on for years, right? It wasn't like, we're not talking about we got in a fight one day with our spouse, and then the next week we were filing for divorce. I mean, this went on for years. We'll talk about it another time. It's like a whole nother failure.
Oh wow, the pettiness.
But go ahead.
On the good side, before we move forward, I would just like to say that there is no ill will or animosity towards any of these men. We wish blessings and peace amongst the both of them, but I don't ever have to see y'all again in my lifetime. I mean, I'm just saying.
Drink that champagne. All right, chance number 2 that I blew. Number 2. This is one. Even though my marriage, ultimate fail, and the reason why I think I put it as ultimate fail because it also affected my kids. And again, we'll talk about that another time. So that really just is heavy on my heart, which is why it tops the number 1. But number 2 is really something that I do through the years over and over, probably is like that fleshy thing that's going to probably keep biting me until I finally figure it out on my last day here on earth. But it's the chance in believing in myself. Again, I mentioned I'm a redheaded stepchild. My parents divorced when I was younger. I am the middle child. I got a lot of those stereotypical things going against me, but let's be real, people. There's some truth to it. My parents were both young when they got married, and very much like me. And except my mom was 16, my dad was 21, I think, when they got married. I was 21, but again, I had a kid at 19. But I've just always have struggled in believing in myself, and it just tends to bite me and put me in these boxes where, like, through the years I'll put myself in this box and I just don't believe in myself, and then one day and I'm so thankful for 1, Jesus, and 2, the friends and people that he surrounds me, that I start breaking out of those boxes. And what I'm saying here has started from like early childhood. When my parents got divorced, like here's a maybe something someone will relate to. My parents got divorced in 2nd grade. And from 2nd grade, I became like a C and D student. I don't know how you make C's and D's in 2nd grade, but like I did. School did not mean anything to me. Like I struggled. And a lot of it had to do with I just didn't apply. I didn't believe in myself. And I talk about this with my brothers. Like I feel like my childhood, I existed. I didn't really play. I didn't really have like a mentor with direction. A lot of it was just figuring out on my own. A lot of, I would say, survival, which is nothing against my parents. I love and adore them. But I really struggle. I've always struggled in believing in myself. So even as early childhood, I had terrible grades. And out of what I call boredom, one day I was like, let me give this school thing a try. And so in 7th grade, I gave a little bit of push in my grades and I became an A student just because I made C's and D's for years. And in 6th grade, 7th grade, I got bored and tried. Now in 7th grade, you're weird and you're awkward. It didn't last long. But I moved to Florida in high school and again, was bored, tried a little bit, and I became an honor student and started doing college classes, even though I made C's and D's my whole life because I just did not believe in myself. I didn't think I had the knowledge. Even today, I always see my brothers. I have an older and younger brother. They're so uberly smart, and I wish I just had like an ounce of their brain capacity, but I'm more of like a street smart person, maybe. I don't know. Maybe I'm not street smart, but even now I'm having trouble believing in myself. It's something I struggle with. And so through the years in my marriage, I did not believe in myself. I let someone control me. I allowed someone to control me. I allowed someone to really shape who I was because I did not believe in myself. I've had many times where I've let someone's influence or a situation influence me, and I just don't believe in myself. And so it's something that has really like popped up through the years, or like these like blips of depression because I just don't believe in myself. That's like the whisper that I have in my head of I'm not enough. I can't do this. Why would I think that I'd be able to do this? And each year I would maybe not year, but every so often I do get to a point where I'm leveling up because people like Lorin, people that I've met through the years, my family have put me in places like have reminded me you are enough. You need to believe in yourself. And one of the great tools that I've used in the last decade and have gotten a little bit better through the years is the scriptures of how God has made me and how, we're uniquely made and wonderfully made and a child of God and set in righteousness. I mean, those are things that I go back on now that I wish I had, in the last 20 years that I didn't. But it's a chance that I wish I didn't take of not believing myself because it's put me in so many boxes that then I have to break out of and then clean up the mess and then, get ready to the next level. But it's definitely something that has hurt me in my relationships, in my career, even. I would say I'm at a place now where like I recognize some of the signs. I surround myself and I look for counsel in those who believe in me and the scriptures that I can relate back to. It's not perfect. It's actually still really messy, but it's not in that place where I stay in the box for a long time and it takes years of coming out of. I do think, again, it's going to be my life sentence of figuring out, but it's a part of who I am. This is a part of my journey. And again, we're just being really honest with you and just kind of sharing some of these things in case it resonates with you too, that you're not alone. And if there's anything that I could tell you right now, if you feel that way, is like you are enough. There's so much good in you right now. There's so many things that you are capable of. You're going to achieve it. You're going to do it. And just surround yourself with the people who will remind you and tell you that, and you're going to be okay. But again, I've spent too many years not believing that, not being okay. And if there's anything that I can do for anyone, it's just to tell them those things that the whisper in my ear that sometimes gets very loud. It's just to shut it down. All right, I'm taking a drink, Lorin. It's time for your failure number 2.
Wow, you gave like a whole motivational sermon.
I mean, I
right
can't
there.
stick in the failure. We got to do a positive spin. I just can't stay there. So I apologize. Back to your failure, Lorin.
I guess the second thing that I kind of want to talk about is not necessarily the failure to believe in yourself, but kind of for me, it's more so along the lines of not taking the chance. So I think my childhood was very much rooted in doing someone else's dream. And, I was taught that I was either going to be a doctor, a lawyer, or engineer, or some of those things. Those are my choices. And I had to make that work. And so from a very young age, I I'm real smart, and as a black person, won't have the option to bring home no C's. My mom was like, if you bring home anything less than an A+ in this house, like, you can go, right? So, for me, it wasn't a matter of, oh, live up to your potential. It was more so fighting to be the person that they were gonna let live up to the potential. So at school, it was my hair was always combed, and I always, mastered the art of articulation because, Bonics wasn't about to be working because they about to be looking at me like, who is this child? And so I think I got very comfortable living in the skin of what everybody wanted me to be, that I wasn't comfortable living in the skin of myself. And I don't think that broke for me until very, very recently. I think I recognized it and I tried to adjust it. I know at one point in high school, I wanted to be into poetry, and I thought that I was going to go to college and be a radio DJ, and I was going to make movies. And I kind of broke probably my parents or my family's heart by pursuing that. But then it was kind of like, well, okay, I'm struggling. And they said, you just go do engineering. So I changed my major and I went into engineering. And for the last 6 years, I've been working in a dead end. Well, let me not say dead end, but a pretty un I
It
don't even know
didn't
the
work for
word.
you. It didn't
Right.
fulfill what
It
you're
didn't
supposed
work
to
for
do
me.
here on Earth.
And just feeling depressed and down and always feeling like I had to perform. And in the last 6 years, I don't think that I've ever had a moment of downtime, and I kind of mentioned it, but I did just quit my job. And so I'm in this season of rest and just like trying to tap back into my creativity and listening to God and trying to understand what's next for me, and having conversations with people and telling them that I'm unemployed on purpose is very, very hard, because they're like, well, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, I'm not doing anything. I'm resting. And they're like, what? You need to get a job. And I'm like, what? No, I'm resting. And it's crazy because I've literally been working or in school or working and in school or working and working with multiple jobs since I was 15, 16 years old. And so now I'm in this place where I'm like, okay, none of that brought me joy or passion, and it wasn't helping my mental. I was stressing myself out, not eating, gaining weight, losing weight, gaining weight, crying in corners and closets, all kind of mess, because I was so into doing what it was that I felt other people wanted me to do, to be able to say, or to be able to call somebody and say, oh, I have this title, or oh, I worked on this project, or oh, I was able to spend this amount of money per this amount of resource. And for what? So I think that for me, that probably has been, outside of my marriage, that has been my biggest failure, is just not having enough, not confidence, but wherewithal or knowledge, right? To be able to say, I want to be able to pursue the things that make my heart joyous and that bring passion to my life. Those are the things that I want to pursue, because that's not what my family taught me or society taught me. Society teaches us that you need to be the richest person and that you need to fight and have the highest title. Screw having relationships, because you don't need that. Rest when you're dead. Hustle, hustle, hustle. And that's not the life that I want to live. And so I'm thankful that for the last 10 years or so, probably more than that, like if you run this back to when I was 15, that's 15 years of me living a life that isn't necessarily mine. And so that's a huge failure, but I'm very thankful that I had this awakening last year, and I was able to say, okay, now's the time for me to decide to be me. And if you can't accept me for who I am, and if you don't want to ride this train or be supportive or be in my corner, or if you want to bring ill will towards me, we won't have to talk. and you can lose my number. I'll block you. It's not being evil or vindictive. Or anything like that. I have to preserve my happiness and my joy and my passion. And that's kind of where we're at. And so I'm really thankful that I am seeing two sides, right? I've been living someone else's dream, and I have the opportunity to kind of step into mine and live my dream. And I'm really excited to see what's next there. Yeah. So that's really hard to say out loud. And I think folks may resonate with that, but this having to tell yourself, or even now, like sometimes I sit and I look in the mirror and I'm like, do you even like purple? Like, you said that's your favorite color. Is it your favorite color? You know? And so it's just been a real good season of figuring out who I am and what are my dreams. And I think that's so important. We're teaching Wynn's kids that, and my younger siblings know that. And I don't want anybody to kind of go through what I went through in the last 15 years. I'd rather be able to say thanks for putting me through it, because now I can educate and help other people not have to go through it. But yeah, that's deep and kind of depressing, but we're on the other side of it. But yeah, there's nothing but good things from here.
Take a drink, girl.
Train,
take a drink.
We out here.
Mine is almost gone. Woo!
Are you empty?
I'm not
over there?
empty, but I got like an 8.
Sounds
left.
like ice, girl. Is that just
it's some ice. Yeah, all right. All right. Lorin, I appreciate you talking about your journey with, just recently walking away from a job, and on purpose, right? It wasn't like unemployment or you were let go. This was on your term. And I can tell you too, what's I don't know if it's funny, ironic, God-given, however you want to put it, but Lorin and I live a lot of parallels in our life. I recently just started a job 3 weeks ago, but I walked away from a job 6 months ago, and I've been out of a job for 6 months. I guess a typical job. I've done some little hustles here and there. Lorin and I are totally guilty of not just fully resting, and Lorin really is this time fully resting. So we're going to.
I don't know about that, because I feel like this podcast is work, sis.
All right.
I'm sorry.
So she's fully resting, but we both have been in a time of rest and a time of pause. Lorin is currently in it. I literally just got out of it 3 weeks ago, but maybe that's one of our future shows is Watch Our Pause. Lorin, write that down. But let's move on to failure number 3, because I'm really feeling that Wynn margarita. I would say 3. 3 is not. I don't know. 3 also, we say 1, 2, 3, these are the 3 failures, but a lot of them cross over. A lot of them have been so impactful in my life. I maybe not can put them in a 1, 2, 3 order. We're just kind of saying them as is. And this one kind of sounds funny in my head, but this is the way that it's registering, is that the chance that I failed on is the chance that I take, because I'm putting it in present terms, and also I've took on others. And so Lorin and I have recently talked about this, but I recently did an Enneagram, and I'm number 2, a helper.
I love Enneagram. I'm a 5.
I'm not fully committed on the Enneagram. I believe I do there's multiple reasons why I do the things that I do, but I would say like at least 75% of the why that I do the things that I do is because I am a helper. And so a lot of times, if I think back to my marriage, even really going back to bleeding into why I don't believe in myself, is because I am a natural helper to others. It's why we're doing this podcast. So there are positive things in this, but it's also, there is some negative, especially when you read the book, take the quiz of the Enneagram. I really let others affect me. I really go above and beyond, and not for the sheer fact of I care about the goodness of the world. It's that I have that desire to be loved. I'm just being real with you people. I have a desire to be loved because I feel very unloved. And again, I have those the sources I go to now for like that group of friends that I really relate to, those scriptures, really a community that I can relate back to remind me that I am loved, that I am adored, that I am chosen. But something I do struggle with, because I need those things in place to remember, is really that I overextend myself to people. And naturally, as humans in our fleshly form, I do get taken advantage of, but I take full responsibility of it. Again, in my marriage, I let someone walk all over me. Again, thought I was helping him, but really I was just taking some of the things that are bad in his life and really escalating those because I allowed it. I've done some other crazy things too. Probably one that is a sore spot here in my heart today, but I did a surrogacy pregnancy that didn't work out with a friend. And I felt like I did go above and beyond that. I had 2 miscarriages along the way, but dang it. Why did I do it? Because I wanted that love, that notoriety that I was doing something good and I didn't get it and it didn't happen. And so absolutely it has devastated me. And then on top it off, I ended up having my own child who I didn't want. Isn't that terrible?
It's like when
I
you're
know.
doing surrogacy.
I know.
No, not anymore. It didn't work. Wait, but you're pregnant. Yeah, that's mine.
It's mine. Yeah, Lauren remembers that call. I mean, I was devastated. Hear this. I've been devastated each time being pregnant, but the one I was most devastated about, not being 19 years old and pregnant, not being pregnant with my second child in a relationship that I thought we were getting a divorce at that time, but being pregnant with a person that I love and adore who treats me so well, but that I had my own child in a time that I did not want. And in that relationship, with that friendship, it broke. And we're not really friends today. And it's still a hole in my heart, but it's because I recognize I put myself in situations because I want love and notoriety and to be accepted, that I go above and beyond. I mean, even on my children, Lauren can tell you, sometimes I'm pretty lenient on my children. Sometimes they do walk all over me. And then I want to be like, oh my gosh, children, why are you so terrible? Again, self-reflection is I allow some of the things that they do. And so, again, it's something that comes up again and again, no matter if it's in childhood, no matter if it's just a few years ago doing surrogacy or today in raising children. I like to take a chance on others, but I don't really always know who I am in that moment or know where that next step really needs to be taken. And I don't always rely on the sources of those friendships and scripture and my relationship with God, that it gets me in a place where I'm doing things just because I want that love and notoriety. And it's not a good place to be. So probably, again, a reoccurring thing. I don't know if it's number 3, but it's something that fails me every time, fails me even today. Again, I'm at a great place today, but who knows what will happen tomorrow. Just being real with you guys, I'm just thankful that people like Lauren, who are not a helper and do that exact same thing and that keep me in place. I need that, and I appreciate that. And even though Lauren doesn't always give the love that I want, she gives the love that I need. So I'm taking my last sip here. It's about to get a little bit slurry, a little bit lispy. But Lauren, please take it away.
I'll take over. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, so number 3, and again, not in any numerical order or anything, but the third thing for me is this idea of making decisions not in your right mental, right? So just taking chances in general, right? And for me, the relationship to that is I take chances because I didn't realize how rooted in trauma things were for me. So, like, I moved, and I think I will always be nomadic. My family traveled, and we used to travel all the time when I was a child. I love driving. I like being on the road. I tell people all the time, I want to retire in an airport. Just buy me an airplane and I'll live there because I just love being in the air and on the road. However, I think that because of the trauma that I faced, and growing up, and trauma can be good or bad, but it had a lot of impact on decisions that I made throughout my life. And I think when I started college, I called myself going out of state to go to school. I went to school in Delaware. Well, I didn't have to do that. I had a close to full ride in state, in Georgia. But I just was like, oh no, I'm going to take this scholarship money and go to Delaware and pay out of pocket and do all these things because I thought that I wanted to go out of state, when in reality I was running away from the issues that I had at my house, right? Like, I didn't think that my mom loved me. And, you know, Wynn makes jokes about me not showing love, but I'm not the huggy, kissy, touchy, feely person because I didn't grow up in that household. I love my mom to death. Like, shout out to Rose. Hope you're doing well. Just spoke to you, you know, but that's not what we did. And then I had a very interesting relationship with my stepdad, and that weighed on me for well into my adult life. And I mean, don't get it twisted, my father was present and in my life, and I get a lot of good attributes for him, but because my stepfather was around and because of the things he said to me and the way he treated me, it definitely resonated on my psyche and the decisions that I made. So you talk about that marriage, like I told myself growing up, my mom had me at a wedlock. My parents didn't stay together and were never married. So I told myself, oh, bet I'm not doing that. I'm gonna be the complete opposite. And then I get up in this marriage that I shouldn't have been in to begin with. And then you take that into some of the decisions I made in my adult life, taking a leadership role where I have to travel weekly for a year, not recognizing that as much as I like to travel, I have commitments with my sorority or church or with my youth group, the things that I like to do that I now can't do because I'm in this role traveling every week across the US, right? And I think even a little part of me moving to California was a part of a traumatic or just trauma of making these decisions of saying, I'm young, black, and a female working in corporate America. If an opportunity presents itself, you need to just jump on it. Like, don't think about it. Doesn't make sense right now. No, but just do it because that's all we've been given. And you take the opportunity, and ended up coming out to California to a facility that had no structure in the way that it was going to help me to succeed, and drained me, for a lack of better words. So I think this idea of not recognizing my trauma enabled me to take all of these chances that I probably shouldn't have been taking. Or even if you want to get spiritual, like, I look back and I'm like, oh my God, that was a test that God was giving me and I failed it. Like, oh, he put this in front of me, he dangled it, or he allowed whatever to happen for this to be in front of me, and I missed it, right? But I mean, it's nice because it allowed me to have the opportunity to get some therapy and to reach out to folks that could call me out and say, Lorin, you're just making this decision because you're scared to unpack all of this other stuff that's going on with you. And I think that's so big, especially when you're trying to navigate life, relationships, all kinds of things. If you don't recognize the impact of your trauma, you'll be out here jumping at all the chances you can get. And that's also not healthy.
Not
healthy.
But
this wine.
But, you know, I love a good but. It's probably my favorite scriptures in the Bible is the ones that start with but. And the but is in these things that we just shared. I mean, we've been drinking. There's been no tears. So I would say these are all positives. These are very painful and very real. We're just going to be real with you right now. They've made us who we are. We wouldn't take it back. I mean, I'm not saying we would do it all over again if given the choice, but it's who we are. And that's what we're sharing with you today. We want you to know that you're not alone. You're not the one that's making all the failures. We've made some pretty big failures. We're going to make some more this week. But there's some guiding things that I'm just being real, right? We're going to fail this week. Let's be real.
I'm going to be in the house this week.
And she's
so I'm not
going
making
to
no
fail
failures.
when
What
she
you
goes
talking
to
about?
the store
And
and
buys
it's like
toilet paper
or champagne. And you're going to get champagne when you have the opportunity to get some toilet paper when the rest of the world is out. Anywho,
Wow.
what matters is the chances, we have to take chances. Again, some are good, some are bad, but have that stronghold in your life to kind of know which ones you should take. And again, we have not mastered this, but we're at a place where we are really digging deep into those chances and asking what is good, what is bad before jumping in. We've put some things in place, like a group of friends that you can rely on, having that uh, biblical base of, connecting with your church, or even like listening to sermons online or reading the Bible, like having that time with God to know, is this the chance I'm supposed to take? No, really, Lord, is this the chance that I'm supposed to take? And then, two, just having that self belief in yourself that no matter what, if you get it right or wrong, you're going to be okay. And so, again, we've talked about some heavy failures today, but I would say that there's three chances that we look forward to today from them. And I would say the first one is the chance that we dare to believe in something different. So whether that's ourselves, that lie that we've been told, or that belief that we had to be a certain way, we want the chance to have that belief in something else other than the lies that we're told. We want the chance to believe in ourselves. So we are capable of so many things, especially through Christ, that gives us that extra amazing grace and mercy that we do not deserve, that chance to believe in ourselves, that take that burden that we bear and then really just give it back to God because he gave it to us in the first place. And then chance number three, right? We want the chance on God. It's a chance in having that faith. Faith is a chance. We either believe in the faith or we do not. And I think Lorin and I are at a place where we're going to be like, all right, God, if this is your will, let's go. Whether that's a bad date, whether that's a new job, whether that's having another child when it's not planned, or taking a pause in our career when we should be go, go, go because we're 30 years old. We're going to take a chance on God because we suck, all right? We
Wow.
suck when we rely on ourselves. We suck, all right?
Yeah, so I definitely Wynn kind of just talked about the connections about how all of this plays out. And I don't want to leave without giving you something to hold on to, because it's like, I hear y'all's story and it's funny and it's cool. One, just know that you're not alone. And hopefully our story is tougher than what you're going through right now, so that you can have some faith in knowing that things will get better. Like Wynn said, she came out of a trialing relationship. She's got 3 beautiful children, and now she's got this amazing new husband. Well, I guess it's not new anymore. Alan
3 years.
He's great.
Yeah.
But that's my best friend.
When I met Alan, Lauren's like, does he have a brother?
Wow.
And he
putting the
doesn't.
business out there.
So that's just how amazing Alan is.
But I also want to give you guys a couple of scriptures that you can kind of take rest into. And if you aren't the scriptural Bible type person, and maybe just listen, or if not, I'll try to give you some real life examples. But when we talk about taking chances and kind of relying on God and having faith, 2 Corinthians chapter 12 verse 9 talks about how God's grace is sufficient. It says, he said to me, that being God, my grace is sufficient for you. My strength is made perfect in weakness.
Yes.
Therefore, most assuredly, I'd rather boast in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me. And that's just saying, it doesn't matter what I'm going through. God's grace is more than sufficient. And even when I am at my weakest, I'm at my strongest because I have him. And that's one of my favorite verses that I hold on to, because I feel that I fail at so many things on a regular basis. And people are like, oh my gosh, you killed that. And I'm like, what? All right, Lord. I see you putting your sprinkle on that. And it's kind of one of the things that holds me over. Also, if you didn't know, and I'm pretty sure some of you do, that David was one of God's favorite humans in the Bible. And David also lived this crazy, imperfect life. And so David has this prayer in Psalms where he kind of rests in God because he's battling between some enemies, both outward enemies, but also inward enemies. And so I love David's prayer. And I actually love the entire book of Psalms because it makes you realize that you aren't the only one. Like, if David can go through it and all of his sin and issues, then I can go through it. And if God can love David through all of that, then he can love me. So the part that I want to call out is Psalms 38, verse 10. It says, "My heart pants, my strength fails me. As for the light of my eyes, it also has gone from me. My loved ones and my friends stand aloof from my plague, and my relatives stand afar off. Those who seek my life lay snare to me. Those who seek my hurt speak of destruction and plant destruction all the day long." And then it goes on to say, "For you, O Lord, I hope you are here, O Lord my God. For I said, hear me, lest they rejoice over me." And it's just a really good prayer. It's like, I got all these things going against me, but Lord, you're going to show up and you're going to show out every time.
Every time.
Every time. And then I think just a cool story is in Matthew, right? This is my last reference. Matthew chapter 15, verse 26 and 27. I don't have it handy, but it just talks about the woman that was not a part of the Jews. She was like a Gentile or whatever. And she comes to Jesus and she says, "Just let me touch your hem." And Jesus is like, "No, can't touch my hem." And she's like, "Lord." And he says, "This isn't your time. It isn't your time yet." And she goes, "But you set all the food out and even the dogs get the crumbs off the table." And he's like, "Huh? You make a good point. You're healed." So it's just having that little bit of faith and that idea that I'm not worthy enough and I'm going to fall short every day. And there's nothing that I'm going to do right that's going to grant me any type of salvation. But because I have Jesus and I trusted him, all I need is just this crumb and all will be made well no matter what I'm going through. Having that piece of crumb makes it all well. And those are the big three areas that I refer back to when things get hard or down.
Yep.
What
I
you
had a
think
li-
when?
Yeah, I had a lady just yesterday I was talking with who's just going through a hard time, and she mentioned, and sharing my testimony and telling my story, she said, "How can you believe in God through all of that you just shared, and how can I believe in God what I'm going through right now?" And it really is just that crumb that it takes, that second glance and seeing the perspective of, I may be going through a hard time right now, but it can be immensely more terrible in that moment not having God. And so I'm thankful for the coattail grabbing. I'm thankful for the bad times that I have because God gets me through it every single time, every failure, the ones I didn't share today, the ones I did share today. It's not because I overcame them alone or figured it out or Lorin gave me the wisdom to do it. It really started with God at the center. And I'm just, I can't, again, I can't even imagine God not being at the center because he is. And if you're not a believer right now, and this sounds crazy, let me just state it is crazy because we're talking about something that is not human, that is not a human like wavelength, that's something that doesn't even resonate, something that Lorin and I, or even the greatest person in the whole wide world, could ever do. We would not be doing this podcast without him. There have been things this week to stop this podcast. Hello, Corona. Hello, bad internet. Hello, so many other things that have happened through this week. But we are so thankful and so blessed to share this with you right now. We're not going to stop. We're going to keep pushing through. We are blessed in this moment of sharing failures with you, and we're telling you from right now, from looking back and saying we got through it. It was painful. It's still painful today, but holy smokes, we got through it, and it's who we are. It's some of the reasons why we are the way that we are, but so thankful that we can see the other side of it.
Yeah. And for me, it's just like, if you're not at that point, keep listening. Ain't no harm in listening, right? And then I'd encourage you to seek help, find some therapy. There are a lot of resources out there. I know there's like virtual versions of therapy out there. Just seek to get help. There's 800 numbers, and then talk it out. Find someone that you feel is a good confidant and start giving them the little pieces of your life, because the more weight you take off of your shoulder, the more you're comfortable sharing your failures and it doesn't feel like shame, and the more lessons it actually becomes. And so if you don't have anybody that you want to talk to, email us. We'll be more than happy to make some jokes and listen to you and encourage you. But I think this is just a great season to dig in and to start processing things and recognize that there is such a great chance to overcome your failures. We're stuck in the house, right? Let's dig in. So just recognize that it's a lesson and not a failure. That's all I got.
All right, tune in
Maybe
next.
we should tell a joke.
Tell a joke? Oh gosh.
We're kind of down right now. We're gonna end on a
We
down
spoke
note.
words
What
of
you
the
got?
Lord. That all sounded good to me.
I mean, I guess that is hella uplifting.
Hey. Well, I got one joke that comes to mind that I think I've told you before. You ready? How does Harry Potter get around? Walking. J.K. Rowling. All right, that is all the time we have. Tune in next week. Follow us on Instagram. We would love to pray with you. We would love to connect with you. Tell us how we're doing. Tell us if we should burn this podcast and it never exists. Or
Okay, Pastor Wynn.
tell us how we can talk about the subjects that you want to hear, the things that we've been through, not been through, guest speakers that we can have.
Yeah, give us.
Yeah,
some good
we would
feedback,
love to hear
guys.
what you thought or what we could do in future shows. We're just excited to be here. It's a great time to be here, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye.